play doo-up, Brooklyn doo-up. 4-8-92-22. The way to do it. Hi to cousin Florence and Mars. Hi to Florence. We love you. Jody says to you and Mars, happy Thanksgiving and sends love. And cousin Florence asked you to play Bird Dog. You're a bird. You're a dog. Ebony Brothers. Let's send it out to the Strattons, good friends of theirs, Sharon and Devon, and to Kathy and George and Kevin, and sends them some Florence and Morris. Florence and Morris, you're a dog. You're a bird dog. In our All-State Studios, scoreboard updates brought to you by Venmo, a good...
Meet them through who are the best managers in each of those lanes.
So diligence is the first step, and that is all the legal and other paperwork that has to be done. Let's talk about risk assessment. How do you figure out, when you're looking at a variety of different investment strategies and managers, hey, what am I getting relative to the risk the client is assuming in this investment? It would seem that's really challenging also.
Yeah, look, I mean, there's things you need to look at. Obviously, you're going to look at the track record over time, and you're going to look at the stability of the team, and do they have all the fundamental things that lead to a repeatable investment process, right? Which should argue that you can rely on that track record as being something that you can look at that can be repeatable in the future, right? I think the other
what's up there, Jibu?
Strategy, right? How many investments are they making? Is it highly concentrated? Is it more diversified?
Really, really interesting. Coming up, we continue our conversation with Kristen Olson, Goldman's Global Head of Alternatives for Wealth, discussing the state of alternative investing today. I'm Barry Bridgehouse. You're listening to Masters of Business on Bloomberg Radio.
Doing good here today. We're gonna eat some yellow golden apples. And we're gonna eat some cookies, some Italian cookies.
City small business owners, this is their time of year to make it or break it. About 35% of their revenue comes in right now between Thanksgiving and New Year's.
Thanksgiving travelers hoping to get back home are worried about a huge upper Midwest snowstorm. WCBS TV meteorologist John Elliott says that storm is on the move.
Heads up for that busy corridor along the East Coast. This is where we could see another significant storm on Tuesday.
You see the yellow golden crisp apples?
It's a hard time for survivors from that huge apartment fire in Hong Kong. Michelle Yu is a counselor trying to help the elderly.
They were quite emotional. I realized sometimes, yes, money is important for them, but more importantly, it's maybe someone to be there with them.
CBS News Brief. I'm Peter King.
And I'm Ed Kalegi in the Bloomberg Newsroom. Here are some of the stories we're watching from a year earlier. According to a key data provider, sign that U.S. consumers are continuing to spend despite persistent economic concerns. Retail sales, excluding autos, increased 4.1% on the day after Thanksgiving, according to data from MasterCard spending.
Look at these.
3.4% growth.
Look at these yummy cookies here we got here. See these yummy cookies? We got all the white sugar covered white sugar creamy covered vanilla cookies. White sugar covered vanilla cookie. White sugar covered vanilla cookie. Oh yeah, let's pull them out.
I think either we're going to get one and done because things are stabilizing and growth is going to be okay, and the AI story has not like
Look at all these cookies we got here. See all these?
really starting
See all these sugar covered cookies? Look at them.
turning of the labor market.
Look at all these cookies we got here. See all these? See all these sugar covered cookies? Look at these white vanilla, sugar covered vanilla cookies. That looks like a blowhole. That looks like a blowhole. Oh yeah. Sugar me blowhole. Ha 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 ha. That looks like a blowhole. Oh yeah.
According to a statement on Friday, as part of the deal, the suburban Chicago school will pay the government $75 billion over 3 years. The American Revolution filmmaker talks about the hypocrisies of American history and what's missing from our political lives today. Ken Burns still thinks America is perfectible. You can read all about it in Bloomberg's Weekend Edition, exploring the places where finance, life, and culture meet. Find it on Bloomberg.com or the Bloomberg Business app. Global news 24 hours a day and whenever you want it with Bloomberg News Now. I'm Ed Kalegi. This is Bloomberg. Get the news you need to start your day in just 15 minutes. The U.S. and China have agreed to a year-long trade truce.
Investors are boosting bets on the Fed cutting rates.
Wake up with Bloomberg Daybreak U.S. Edition. The nationwide redistribution battle. 7 consecutive lead-changing touchdowns available now in your podcast feed. Each weekday morning at 6 a.m. Eastern.
President Trump's push to end the war in Ukraine.
Subscribe to Bloomberg Daybreak U.S. Edition on Apple, Spotify, and everywhere you get your podcasts. Bloomberg Radio. Context changes everything.
Are you a wirehouse advisor that's looking to break away? Commonwealth Financial Network can help you take control of your career and build your business on your terms. Your clients, your strategy, your time. Unleash your entrepreneurial spirit and choose the growth path that's right for you. Own your future with Commonwealth.
Look at this one. This one's got a.
Visit Commonwealth.com. Commonwealth Financial.
This one's a virgin. This one's got a closed blowhole. Look at that blowhole. That blowhole is closed. See that closed blowhole? Ha 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 ha!
Is brought to you by Unbound.org. Right now, there are young people across the world facing a tough choice: continue their dream of education or drop out to help their family put food on the table. You can help change their future in a single moment. See how far your support can go at Unbound.org.
Now, your 3-day weather forecast on Bloomberg 1130.
Clear skies, rate of increasing cloudiness overnight, lows 35 to 40. Cloudy tomorrow with rain in the afternoon, breezy highs of 45 to 50. Rain ends tomorrow night, it'll be breezy 30 to 35. High pressure leads the sunshine on Monday, highs near 40. Tuesday, we'll see rain developing, inland may be mixed with wet snow, highs 40 to 45. I'm Rob Carolyn with your 3-day forecast on Bloomberg 1130. Bloomberg Radio, on demand, and in your podcast feed.
On the latest edition of the Bloomberg Business Week Daily Podcast, a conversation with Elise Giuliano, senior lecturer in political science at Columbia University, on why U.S. efforts to end the war in Ukraine aren't swaying Moscow. Putin wants Ukraine to still be in the neighborhood of Russia and a close ally of Russia, and that means an authoritarian kind of oligarchic state. It doesn't mean a member of the EU or NATO or a democracy or an ally of the U.S. So keeping the West out of Ukraine is the fundamental goal. And then there's this personal element as well, personal oligarchic friends of Putin who were expelled from positions of power in Ukraine over the past few years as well as this concept that Ukrainians are not a nation, they're not a separate people, and they don't deserve statehood. They are little brothers, Slavic little brothers of Russians. So this is why they're kidnapping children and taking Ukrainian children and saying you're actually Russian.
Does it make you think differently about the U.S. relationship with Russia?
It has worsened the U.S. relationship with Russia. It was already an adversarial relationship, but now it's much, much worse. We see Americans arrested and used as just pawns in trades that Russia has political prisoners. We see lack of any kind of diplomacy with regard to other countries in the world or other formerly common interests that the U.S. and Russia shared. So we seem to be enduring a kind of deep freeze in relations with Russia, and it doesn't look like a kind of ceasefire or peace agreement is going to change some of those underlying issues.
Hear the full conversation on the latest edition of the Bloomberg Business Week Daily podcast. Subscribe on Apple, Spotify, and anywhere else you get your podcasts. Plus, listen anytime on the Bloomberg Business app and Bloomberg.com.
Will the U.S. economy enter a recession by the end of Q4 2025? At IBKR Forecast Trader, the yes was recently at 6%, and the no was at 94%. With the Interactive Brokers forecast contracts, you can trade on future events like climate, the economy, or politics. Pick yes or no, and if you're right, you earn $1. Forecast contracts are not suitable for all investors. Make your prediction. Go to ibkr.com/forecast and start predicting today. Last trading date for this contract is March 26, 2026. Now, a sports update on Bloomberg 1130.
This afternoon at Madison Square Garden, the Tampa Bay Lightning beat the Rangers 4-1. Tonight at the Rock, the Devils host the Philadelphia Flyers. College football at the final, Boston College beats Syracuse 34-12. Elsewhere, LSU and Oklahoma are tied at 10. Number 14 Vanderbilt leads number 19 Tennessee 31-24. That's your Bloomberg Sports. I'm Seth Everett.
You're listening to Masters in Business with Barry Riddle on Bloomberg Radio.
I'm Barry Results. You're listening to Masters in Business on Bloomberg Radio. My extra special guest is Kristen Olson. Kristen is the global head of alternatives for wealth management clients at Goldman Sachs, a position she's held for 24 of her 27 years at Goldman. So before we get into the state of alternative investing today, I'm fascinated by this big survey you guys do each year. Over 1,000 clients and other people participate in it. And some of the answers that come along are kind of expected. Some are really kind of surprising. Let's go over a few of these because they're really fascinating. So first, your survey reveals wealthy individuals adopt alternative investments as their net worth grows. That wasn't a surprise.
Not surprising.
But some of the specifics, some of the percentages were really like, wow, look at that. Tell us a little bit about the response you get to that survey question.
Yeah, so, well, first I would say this is our inaugural survey. This is the first time that we're actually surveying a broad universe.
Put me on that list. I want to see that data every year. I'm a junkie for that sort of stuff.
So, and I think part of the impetus for that, too, was just what we've talked about, sort of the incredible interest by individual investors in figuring out, should they invest in alternatives? How do they invest in alternatives? And so that was sort of the impetus to this, opening the door to alternative survey that we just did. I think the data that you mentioned is not surprising. Obviously, from my seat, starting with ultra high net worth clients, I've been investing in alternatives for 25 plus years. I was surprised by down the wealth.
Are you a home, Jibu?
There's a fair amount of participation all the way down to the $1 to $5 million clients, right? And I think as it becomes easier for these individuals to invest in alternatives, and as there's more education around it, those numbers are going to continue to go up.
So I'll tell you what surprised me at first blush, and then as I thought about it, made a lot of sense. Millennials are at the forefront of a significant shift in investment behavior.
Did you get any food? Did you get anything to eat?
Hey, these are the kids who more or less came of age right into the great financial crisis. They're like, wait, stocks can go down also? So I'm not terribly surprised by that once I thought about it. But still, how...
What did you get to eat?
Look, I think it's one to watch. Obviously, we're just starting to see it and digesting the survey results. But one part I think about as millennials is their interest in accessing innovation, right? Like this is a
yeah.
digital first generation, and so
I assume that's with French fries, right?
how do you access innovation in healthcare, in tech? A lot of that is in the private markets, right? And so I think part of that also might be the reason why you see millennials, being more inclined to alternatives, and being sort of kind of this shift in behavior.
So let's talk about the percentage of people whose wealth is professionally managed. And obviously the data set that this question goes to is pretty significant, but 59% of wealth amongst 1,000 individuals surveyed were professionally managed. And I kind of...
I'm eating apples with cookies. Apples with cookies. Vanilla cookies with vanilla icing sugar on top.
Most people, they're running their business, they're continuing to accumulate more wealth. But I'm curious about who was the data set this went to, and what do you think of that 59% number? High, low, somewhere in between?
Well, so it went to 1,000 investors, $1 million of investable assets plus, and 25 years old or older.
Yeah, I bought so much turkey on the 27th on Thanksgiving
Frankly, part of the intention was
that I ended up putting most of that turkey into the freezer. I had to put most of that turkey into the freezer.
we have a long history in our wealth business. We know the ultra high net worth very, very well. And I think if we were to run the survey, very high percentage. Exactly, right? So my guess is that not professionally managed piece are more self-directed at the lower end of the wealth spectrum would be my guess, and maybe younger.
Right. When you see BlackRock at 12 trillion and Vanguard at 11 trillion, hey, someone's running their own portfolio, so it would make sense 41% or so of people, if not more, are doing it. It's really interesting to think about what is the mass affluent doing, what is the high net worth doing, what is the ultra high net worth and multifamily office doing. I think as you go up that scale, is it safe to say most of them are working with professionals?
Yeah, I put it into the freezer so it stays fresh longer.
The other part is if they're self-directed and they're
so it stays fresh longer. That's why I had to put it into the freezer.
50% of advisors have even brought up alternatives with some of that.
Really
so it stays fresh longer. That's why I had to put it into the freezer. Alternatives, because it's very hard to do that without an advisor. And then you only have something less than 50% of advisors bringing up alternatives. Like this is.
Did you see the picture that I sent you of my of all those salads I bought? The macaroni salad, the potato salad. Did you see that picture? Did you see how much that cost per pound?
Did you see the picture that I sent you of my all those salads I bought? The macaroni salad, the potato salad.
Well, I work with other
Did you
people.
see that picture? Did you see how much that cost per pound?
Saves money away from you. Your wallet share is much lower than you realize. Until you're with the same advisor for 5 or 10 years, and the client is comfortable in shares. But I love this data point. Households with 10 million.
Yeah, nothing was for sale.
They engaged 2 different advisors compared with one advisor at the mass affluent and high wealth groups. Tell us a little bit about that dual advisor approach. We're not saying 2 people at the same firm. These could be 2 completely different firms.
I think as people go up the wealth spectrum, they want to have different options, different viewpoints, have some capital at different firms.
A little diversification internally.
Exactly. I do think, though, from my experience,
So many people here in New York City do not eat turkey for Thanksgiving. Could you believe that?
there is a lead relationship.
They had no source of protein.
Up the wealth spectrum, and you have more complexity.
No source of protein.
A lot of that being alternatives. It becomes more and more imperative to have somebody that's the quarterback or the driver, in the pole position as opposed to, the people both managing parts of the portfolio.
You don't want overlap. You don't want
overlap, and you also want, we talked about how hard it is to build these alternatives portfolios. Doing that in 2 places, and how are you managing the liquidity, and how are you knowing how you're actually allocated overall? I think you start to see this shift to one advisor really being the lead advisor, and the other advisor maybe being a secondary advisor.
So as much as I thought that was a fascinating data point, this one kind of terrifies me. Millennials cite social media more often, while boomers rely on traditional media outlets for their investing and financial planning information. Social media, really?
Well, one of the things that I say, and I'm definitely not a millennial, but if you go on your LinkedIn feed, you see videos or on Instagram from major alternative investing firms, right? And so you can see why millennials are. I don't know what percentage of their time they're spending on social media, but naturally these ads and these videos are getting served up to them there. So it seems logical to me then that that's where they're going to.
Well, LinkedIn is probably the most credible social media outlets, but I think of TikTok and Instagram and Twitter. So let's bring this back around to alts today. Let's talk about themes. What are you most excited about in private markets? What's new, interesting, and thrilling? Can I use the word thrilling to talk about alts?
Well, look, I think when you say thrilling, I think about all the innovation.
Macaroni salad is supposed to be cheap. Potato salad is supposed to be cheap.
AI on any topic.
I'm not familiar with that.
They sell the potatoes for 69 cents per pound.
What we're seeing in terms of the incredible advances in AI is bringing back a lot of risk appetite to invest in venture and in growth and to participate in what they think is going to be transformational technology advancement around AI.
So how does making a potato salad end up costing 10 times the amount? 10 times the amount that you pay for the raw potato.
It's quite interesting. And a lot of the other things that are not thrilling, which was the word you used.
Maybe that's the wrong word, but really interesting with great growth potential.
Well, look,
That's thrilling.
yeah. So look, I would say we talked a little about secondaries. We really like secondaries because again, if you think about the primary alternate markets growing, right? More money's going to alternatives. That naturally means the secondary market's going to grow, right? The spillover is correlated to the growth of the primary markets of alternatives. So there's
You know what's funny? The funny thing is, those people, they did not reduce the price of the turkeys the second day because they had them there yesterday also. They had the turkeys there yesterday also. The fully cooked turkeys, and they did not reduce the price, and nobody bought not even one. Nobody bought not even one. Because I went there on purpose because I was curious. I was curious how these people operate. And they're so greedy. They're so greedy to make the most amount of money that they just took a total loss. They took a total loss.
And they're trying to understand the role of infrastructure in a portfolio, which has a lot of unique benefits, right? A lot of times it's not correlated to GDP growth, right?
No, they made no discount. Food is not on sale. Food is not discounted. And these supermarkets here in New York City, food is not discounted. You're not getting no sales, no discounts, no five-finger discounts, no nothing. You're paying full price. You're paying full price, or you're walking out with empty hands.
Energy transition, right? It's a lot of the very, I guess maybe the more thrilling parts of investing are actually in the infrastructure asset class. And so that is part of the real assets that's grown a lot and where there's a lot of interest.
Really super interesting. Kristen, thank you for being so generous with your time. We have been speaking with Kristen Olson. She's Goldman Sachs.
That's why most people, I'm not even kidding you. Most people were walking out of the supermarket without bags. They didn't even have the shopping bags. They couldn't even afford to pay the 5 cents the nickel for a shopping bag. They were just walking out. They're walking out with empty hands, or they're walking out with one or two items in their hands. That's it. That was it.
5 cents to nickel for a shopping bag. They were just walking out. They're walking out with empty hands, or they're walking out with one or two items in their hands. That's it. That was it.
That helps with these conversations together each week. Alexis Noriega is my video producer. Luke is my audio producer. Sean Russo is my head of research. Sage Bauman is the head of podcasts here at Bloomberg. I'm Barry Ritholtz. You've been listening to Masters in Business.
No, it does not. It does not. Oh, by the way, food stamps. Everybody everybody had to reapply. You had if you collect food stamps and you're an American citizen, you had to reapply. You had to reapply for food stamps, the president said. If you collect food stamps and you're an American citizen, you have to reapply. You have to reapply for food stamps, the president said.
Sponsored by Steel.
They cut off food stamps when the government got shut down. So actually, the president wanted the government to get shut down because it all worked out in his favor. All federal programs got shut down and they ended. So when he restarted the food stamp program and all the other benefit programs, you had to reapply.
The deadly Russian attack on the Ukrainian capital Kyiv on Saturday. President Trump previously hoped to hammer out a deal to bring Russia's war with Ukraine to an end by Thanksgiving.
There are also negotiations planned this week in Washington and in Moscow. Travelers headed from or to the Midwest may be double-checking their smartphones a lot for delays or cancellations thanks to a huge snowstorm. Weather Prediction Center meteorologist David Roth speaking tonight, and it's expected to fade during the day tomorrow. It's already ended in far western Iowa and far southwest Minnesota, but it's going to shift eastward. There's even going to be some snow in New England. It's just the heaviest snow is forecast to be between Iowa, northern Illinois, southern Wisconsin. Adobe Analytics says online spending has outpaced in-store shopping so far this holiday shopping season. Adobe's Vivek Pandya says Black Friday was a record breaker.
Black Friday sales were up 9.1% year on year. So really good momentum for Black Friday and really indicative of this live period of Thanksgiving to Cyber Monday, which is very crucial for retailers. We're anticipating about $44 billion will be spent across those 5 days.
Tony Award and Oscar-winning playwright Tom Stoppard has died in his home in Great Britain. More from the BBC's John Shea. One of his best-known plays is Rosencrantz and Guildenstern, a day, an absurdist take on two minor characters from Shakespeare's Hamlet. His script for the film, Shakespeare in Love, won him an Oscar. Born in former Czechoslovakia, Tom Stoppard arrived in the UK as a child. The songwriter and lyricist Sir Tim Rice was his friend.
He put forward so many fascinating theories, serious theories about life, about war. He was able to mix intellectual arguments and philosophical thought with sheer wisdom.
I thought that what was it, Black Friday? I thought that it was going to be postponed this year. And apparently it wasn't postponed because it's been the record-breaking Black Friday of the whole century. It's been record-breaking. So many people have been shopping online.
Black Friday of the whole century. It's 5,000, 50,000, or 500,000. We have a solution. It doesn't matter if you're sitting in your car, at work, or with your kids. No matter where you are, call now. 800-497-0593. Don't lose hope. TRA can eliminate or reduce what you owe to the IRS. Generous programs are now available that can give you a fresh start. Our passion is taxes and helping individuals fix their IRS problems. We have over 1,000 5-star reviews on Google and an A+ with the Better Business Bureau. You don't need to be afraid of the IRS any longer. End your tax nightmares today by visiting us online at TRA.com or call 800-497-0593.
Yeah, what's up with that? What's up with the postponement for Black Friday, and yet right now they just said on the radio show, they just said that it's been record-breaking. It's been record-breaking sales. Record-breaking sales. It broke all previous records for Black Friday. I thought Black Friday was going to be postponed this year.
Black Friday. I thought Black Friday was going to be postponed this year.
Nikki Barker, CBS News, London.
Los Angeles prosecutors charged a man with stopping traffic on the 110 freeway 2 years ago to shoot a music video. They say Eduardo Martinez and other drivers blocked northbound lanes with their cars, then recorded the drivers doing donuts. Martinez is jailed on $100,000 bond. Peter King, CBS News. And I'm Ed Kalegi in the Bloomberg Newsroom. Here are some of the stories we're watching. Sales on Black Friday rose from a year earlier, according to a key data provider, a sign that U.S. consumers are going to spend despite persistent economic concerns. Retail sales, excluding autos, increased 4.1% on the day after Thanksgiving. This according to data from Mastercard Spending Pulse. That surpasses last year's 3.4% growth. The figures, which are not adjusted for inflation, draw from both online and in-person purchases. To give a broad view of economic activity, the data shows U.S. shoppers' resilience amid higher costs and job market concerns. To appeal to price-sensitive consumers, retailers are offering discounts on a wide range of goods, although the promotions may not be quite as deep as in past years. It's Small Business Saturday, and restaurants in Texas are urging customers to pay in cash. Bloomberg's Monica Rich.
Hey, Jibu.
The Texas Restaurant Association says credit card processing fees, which now average about 2.35% of every sale, eat into business margins, and paying with cash can help offset those costs. Many businesses have been swallowing the fees despite higher inflation and tariffs, but experts say it's getting harder to avoid passing the costs on to customers. According to the Merchants Payments Coalition, Americans paid upwards of $236 billion in credit card processing fees alone last year. That's about $1,200 per family. Monica Ricks, Bloomberg Radio.
Sergey Brin gave away more than $1.1 billion worth of Alphabet stock this week, with most of the money going to a nonprofit the Google co-founder created.
Did you hear? Did you hear?
Which did not specify who had received the more than 3.5 million shares.
What I was for?
For Brin's family office, roughly $1 billion in stock is going to Catalyst 4. Brin is also giving about $90 million to his family foundation, as well as $45 million to the Michael J.
What I was saying before, I thought that Black Friday was supposed to be postponed this year, and apparently Black Friday has not been postponed this year, because apparently they've broken all the sales. All the sales record history since Black Friday started. Well, no, they haven't been buying in the stores. They have not been going into the stores. They have been buying online. Well, no, they haven't been buying in the stores. They have not been going into the stores. They have been buying online.
A big game. Ohio State beat Michigan for the first time since before COVID. And Penn State, they drop Rutgers. And that's your Bloomberg Sports Update. I'm Rob Bushka.
This is Bloomberg Intelligence with Scarlett Fu and Paul Sweeney.
How do you think the Fed is looking? The uncertainty of terms.
Let's take a look at the sectors and how they performed.
A lot of investors getting whipsawed every day by news events.
Breaking market headlines and corporate news from across the globe.
Could we see a market disruption, a market event?
Are people just too exuberant out there?
You see some so-called low-quality stocks driving this short-term rally.
Bloomberg Intelligence with Scarlett Fu and Paul Sweeney on Bloomberg Radio, YouTube, and Bloomberg Originals.
On today's Bloomberg Intelligence Show, we dig inside the big business stories impacting Wall Street and the global markets.
Each and every week, we provide in-depth research and data on some of the 2,000 companies and 130 industries our analysts cover worldwide.
Today, we'll look at why the retailer Kohl's raised its full-year outlook for the second straight quarter.
Plus, a look at why travelers are eyeing similar spending for vacations in 2026.
But first, we'll move next to some news in the biotech space.
This week, we heard that a pill version of Danish drug maker Novo Nordisk's Ozempic failed to slow the progression of Alzheimer's in a pair of studies.
Novo said this was based on a cognitive assessment for patients who took the medicine. The drug maker will now discontinue a planned 1-year extension of the studies.
As a result, Novo stock plummeted to its lowest in more than 4 years. We are joined by Sam Fazeli, Bloomberg Intelligence Director of Research for Global Industries and Senior Pharmaceuticals Analyst.
We first asked Sam to break down Novo's recent studies.
It's not about obesity, it's about a drug
semaglutide in a pill form that they tested in Alzheimer's disease. And the theory was, and there was some evidence that people who were taking the very first version of the GLP-1 drug, so Victoza or liraglutide, they had a lower risk of developing Alzheimer's when you looked at historic or retrospective data. And there's animal models that it wasn't fine. And it didn't work out. They said that they're seeing some impacts in some biomarkers, etc. And we'll find out next week what biomarkers. But the trial didn't work out. And the question here is, was the theory wrong, or is the drug not good enough? Is the pill enough? If we know the pill doesn't do as well in obesity as the injection, should they have tested the injection?
That's a good question. And you mentioned that the ingredient here that we're paying attention to is semaglutide.
Black Friday.
I hope I'm pronouncing correctly.
I knew that wasn't gonna happen.
And Alzheimer's are just as no.
People keep spending money they don't have. That's the problem. The problem is the credit. You know, when you get credit, it means that you have money that you don't actually have. You're on somebody else's cup.
You have money that you don't actually have. You're on somebody else's cup. That would be interesting to see whether that helps.
Credit ruined America.
Much more drug in it. Or maybe you redesign it a bit. So it really does depend on how much appetite to risk these companies have. Just over $1 trillion market cap. Maybe they should give it a go. It would be magic if this thing, literally would be magic if this thing just covered so many different.
And focus on just the market for dementia and Alzheimer's is one part of it. I would think that A, it's a big market, and B,
credit ruined America.
With people living longer. How do you guys think about it? And how do you play it if you're an investor?
Yeah, it is a significant societal issue. Number one, and I think there are not many families who could say that they have any experience in it. They have older people in their extended family. So the market has humongous potential. You need drugs that actually treat the disease. Remember, by the time you have Alzheimer's, i.e., a full-blown dementia of the Alzheimer's, it's a bit late. That means there's a lot that's already there. So you need to go early, long trial. And Lilly is doing that with their assets. So fingers crossed we'll find out in the next 2 or 3 years where they're going early with these assets. Roche is doing it too. It would be a beneficial.
Right. I mean, the test with the pill form of Ozempic was definitely a lottery ticket. If it worked, great. If not, we're back to the drawing board.
Exactly.
Are there any effective treatments right now against dementia or Alzheimer's?
Well, by effective, I mean, it's tough to say, but there are drugs that lower this thing that is viewed as a critical part of the Alzheimer's disease, which is amyloid plaques in your brain. If they do lower it, Lilly's got that drug, Biogen's got an equivalent drug, Roche is trying a similar approach, and you do slow down the degeneration. You don't stop it, you slow it down. So what we really want is to stop people getting to that degeneration. Try and get them before they have full-blown Alzheimer's or dementia, so that's called mild cognitive impairments. Try and slow that down to give them another 10, 12, 20 years of dignified life.
So where do you think we are in a time frame for something like that, Sam? Is that measured in a couple of years or more than that?
Well, so Lilly is literally trying that, and we'll find out whether, and they have the better drug in this space, so we'll find out whether in the next 2 or 3 years, remember these things are trials that need to be run until you start seeing a difference. If they get that to that point, and of course then society has to decide, well, how are we going to pay for this? How many people, because there's a large market, right? How many people are we going to want to treat with the prices of these drugs, whatever they are, even if it's $10,000 a year, right? And they are on their way to becoming worse, and we want to slow that down. You have 10 million people. I mean, this could be similar in terms of value to the obesity market, but you need the drug to do that. So let's wait and see. And Roche has got a new way of trying to do it, and they're going to go again also into phase 3 to test that out.
Our thanks to Sam Vazzelli, Bloomberg Intelligence Director of Research for Global Industries and Senior Pharmaceuticals Analyst.
We move next to the restaurant industry.
Bloomberg Intelligence will release data for November restaurant sales in early December. And according to BI, U.S. restaurant same-store sales rose 0.7% in October, but could drop in November because of the government shutdown.
For more on the industry, I was joined by Michael Halen, Bloomberg Intelligence Senior Restaurant and Food Service Analyst. I first asked Michael to talk to us about how restaurants are doing and whether it depends on the segment of the market they're targeting.
Definitely part of it. We saw that in last month's data. Fine dining had a really nice rebound, and I think part of it is because
Oh yeah, we had enough of the cookies.
we own assets.
That's it.
Good about taking it forward. Right now, you know,
Cookies are going away.
no doubt about it. The government shutdown has definitely impacted sales and traffic for the chains we cover, especially in the DMV area, as well as in the South where there's a lot of government workers. Also, last November, restaurants.
See this little baby laptop, Jibu? I love this little baby laptop.
And so we're lapping tough comps. November's not looking great.
Baby laptop, Jibu. I love this little baby laptop. This is a little baby laptop. It's like a little baby.
Not crazy bullish, but we're real bullish about
It's like a little baby.
It's a little baby laptop. It's like a little baby. I think back to McDonald's of the world and so on.
It's like a little
Quick
baby.
service had a really difficult first half of the year. They were lapping strong comps, and they kind of lost their way when it came to value. Right? They just had implemented too big of price increases over the last few years, and customers started to push back, especially low-income consumers who have been, who are really impacted by inflation to a much greater degree than middle and higher income consumers. So the first half was difficult, but here in the second half of the year, things have been better, largely because
Yeah, so we opened it up again. Opened up the chat again.
McDonald's has revamped its dollar menu this year. They also reintroduced $3 price point, which have boosted checks by people adding them onto their orders, as well as bringing in some low-income consumer traffic. But low-income consumers are pulling back at a pretty big rate. We think part of that is the SNAP benefit pullback, but they've been able to bring in some higher income consumers and middle income consumers. So things are starting to look better. McDonald's is going to be lapping the E. coli, or right now is lapping the E. coli outbreak from last year. And so, they're the 800-pound gorilla, and I think good results out of McDonald's over the next few quarters should boost the entire category.
How about the cost of beef, which consumers complain about across the board? I know companies are dealing with it, and what I understand is we're not going to see a material improvement in the cattle herd until maybe 2028. So how does that factor to the profit margins of
the restaurants that are impacted the most are, burger chains like Shake Shack or steakhouses like Texas Roadhouse that own and operate all of their stores. To your point, beef inflation for these chains is going to be in the mid-teens in the fourth quarter. So very high. So definitely a lot of margin pressure for those chains. Luckily those two chains have driven traffic as of late into the stores, which, and driven higher sales and been able to pass along price increases, and that has kind of helped their operating leverage, which has helped offset the higher costs. For the burger chains, there's less impact for the chains that we cover, for McDonald's, Wendy's, Jack in the Box, because they're largely franchised. So the franchisees are the ones footing the bill for the higher beef costs.
why do not all chains do like the McDonald's franchisee model? What's the benefits of franchising, or what's the benefit of owning versus a franchise? I saw the movie. I think I understand the economics of franchising. It seems pretty good.
Listen, the franchise business, that's a great business. And from where I sit as an analyst, we love it. It's easier to predict the earnings and the free cash flow. It's a much more steady business model. Franchising eliminates a lot of the operating leverage and thus the risk. to your margins out of the business, right? But if you are running a full-service restaurant chain where operations is very core to your business, think Darden, think Texas Roadhouse, you want to own and operate your stores. You want to have control over those operations. You want to make sure people are getting a good experience, and they're just much harder to run than a McDonald's or a Wendy's. And then I'd say on the last case would be somebody like Shake Shack or Wingstop or Kava. You know, when your cash-on-cash returns are 40, 50, 60%, we don't think it's a bad thing to be greedy and want to open up as many stores as possible.
Our thanks to Michael Halen, who covers restaurants and food services for Bloomberg Intelligence. Coming up, a look at why the tech company Cisco may be on a Goldilocks growth path. You're listening to Bloomberg Intelligence on Bloomberg Radio.
I ate the lasagna yesterday.
You can access Bloomberg Intelligence via BI
You heard?
the terminal. I'm Scarlett Fu.
I ate the lasagna yesterday.
We asked parents to adopt a kid to share their journey.
We just kind of knew from the beginning that we were family. They showed me the sense of love that I never had.
I still gotta eat my ribs.
At the end of the day, it's all been worth it. I wouldn't change a thing about our life.
I still gotta eat my ribs.
Visit a doctor.
And the rest of the protein went into the refrigerator.
The U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the Ad Council.
The rest of the protein went into the refrigerator.
To start, the clouds to increase as the night
Into the freezer.
city 30 to 35.
I put a whole bunch of protein into the freezer also.
45 to 50. Rain ending tomorrow night. Breezy lows 30 to 35. Sunshine's back on Monday near 40.
Put a whole bunch of protein into the freezer also.
Mix with wet snow inland. Highs 40 to 45. I'm Rob Carroll with your 3-day forecast on Bloomberg 1130.
And I'm Ed Kalegi in the Bloomberg Newsroom. Here are some of the stories we're watching. Sales on Black Friday rose from a year earlier, according to a key data provider, a sign that U.S. consumers are continuing to spend despite persistent economic concerns. Retail sales, excluding autos, increased 4.1% on the day after Thanksgiving. This according to data from MasterCard Spending Pulse. That is last year's 3.4% growth. The figures, which are not adjusted for inflation, draw from both online and in-person purchases to give a broad view of
I can't believe so many Americans are spending on credit cards, on credit. They're paying for everything with credit cards. They're paying for everything with credit cards. They don't even own.
They're paying for everything with credit cards. They're paying for everything with credit cards. Vaccine regulator says his team found COVID shots contributed to the death of at least.
They're paying for everything with money they don't even own. How stupid is that?
Linking the shot to myocarditis or inflammation of the heart.
They're paying for everything with money they don't even own. How stupid is that?
The FDA is now rethinking its framework for vaccines, including whether Americans should be receiving multiple jabs at the same time. It also plans to require vaccine makers to show far more data to prove their products are safe. The effort's being championed by Health Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr., who once called the COVID shot the deadliest ever made. Monica Ricks, Bloomberg Radio.
Russia unleashed an air barrage on Ukraine's capital overnight, killing at least 3 people and causing widespread power outages. As President Volodymyr Zelensky's negotiating team heads to the U.S. for talks aimed at bringing an end to the war. National Security and Defense Council Secretary Rustem Umerov and his negotiating team are on the way to the U.S. Zelensky said this on X. They are expected to meet Sunday with Secretary of State Marco Rubio, along with U.S. Special Envoy Steve Witkoff and Trump's son-in-law Jared Kushner in Florida. The American Revolution filmmaker talks about the hypocrisies of American history and what's missing from our political lives today. Ken Burns still thinks America is perfectible. You can read all about it in Bloomberg's Weekend Edition. Find it on Bloomberg.com and the Bloomberg Business app. Global news, 24 hours a day and whenever you want it with Bloomberg News Now. I'm Ed Kalegi. This is Bloomberg.
The breaking news out of Washington is constant.
The White House announces a reduction in tariffs.
The conversation about affordability is getting louder.
And Bloomberg 1130 has the experts to bring you every angle.
These talks between the U.S. and Ukraine.
The latest on the Jeffrey Epstein.
Breaking political headlines from the team that knows DC.
U.S. Commerce Secretary Helen Bucknight, thank you so much for your time.
Listen on Apple CarPlay or Android Auto with the Bloomberg Business app. And always on Bloomberg 1130. Context changes everything.
I'm Elton John. When he was just 13, my friend Ryan White was diagnosed with AIDS. This was 40 years ago. At the time, he was shunned and threatened by his community. Yet his grace and determination to help change the world for himself and all those infected with HIV was an inspiration. He is part of the reason I founded the Elton John AIDS Foundation. Since it began, the foundation has helped reach over 100 million people at risk of and affected by AIDS. Learn more at eltonjohnaidfoundation.org. JAF on Instagram.
Now, a sports update on Bloomberg 1130.
Rangers pounded a home by Tampa Bay on the tail end of a back-to-back. Devils are early on in the first, no score, hosting the Flyers. They were on a back-to-back in Buffalo. Next stop of the hour, tip things off in Milwaukee. They're winless at home. College football, Penn State edges Rutgers. Ohio State remained unbeaten, taking down Michigan for the first time in 6 years. And BC ends a 10-game skid at Syracuse's expense in their finale. It's your Bloomberg Sports Update. I'm Rob Bushka.
This is Bloomberg Intelligence with Scarlett Fu and Paul Sweeney on Bloomberg Radio.
We move next to more earnings in the retail sector. This week we got third quarter earnings from Kohl's and Abercrombie and Fitch. Kohl's raised its full-year outlook for the second straight quarter. It's a sign that Chief Executive Officer Michael Bender is helping to stabilize performance at the struggling retailer.
Separately, Abercrombie & Fitch raised the low end of its full-year sales outlook as its Hollister brand continued to gain momentum. We were joined by Mary Ross Gilbert, Bloomberg Intelligence Senior Equity Analyst covering retail.
We first asked Mary for her take on Kohl's most recent earnings report.
They've kind of gone back to the basics, but something that Kohl's has always been known for. So one is the private brand. So if you think about some of the brands like So, the Juniors, Lauren Conrad for women, and they brought those brands back because they actually sacrificed some of those brands under the prior leadership and replaced them with some more name brands like Madden Girl, trying to really attract the junior shopper there. And now that they brought the private brands back, they brought back petite sizing, which was really important to their customer base. Now they're really starting to see, a recovery. But they're not out of the woods yet, Scarlett, as you pointed out. I mean, they're really cycling 3 years of decline, but we are seeing encouraging results. And given that they actually turned positive in the latest month, it looks like they could actually reach break even in the fourth quarter, even though they're guiding to a 1.7% comp sales decline. So it's very encouraging to see with Kohl's, again, not out of the woods. And when you look at what's going on with Sephora, it's now a $2 billion business. And as you were sort of highlighting, that means they really lost, over the last 4 years, something like $45 billion in other categories. So they have lost market share. We think they're losing it to off-price and some of the value players in the specialty space, such as Old Navy, a Gap brand.
Mary, I also want to ask you about Abercrombie & Fitch. It was the darling 2 years ago because the new CEO found a way to make the brand relevant.
We're going to put out the...
It was no longer targeting teenagers, for instance, and really targeting young working women. But it's had a brutal 2025. A lot of concerns about tariffs, perhaps, and maybe even a lack of fresh ideas in terms of its offerings. What's the narrative with Abercrombie & Fitch right now?
Yeah, so Scarlett, with Abercrombie & Fitch, their numbers came in better than expected. So the namesake brand, as you pointed out, that had been double-digit increases over the last 3 years. So they're cycling those increases, and that's why their sales are coming in less than expected. But this quarter, the comp sales decline there was about 3.3%, so that was better than expected. And when you look at Hollister, though, Hollister has been coming in ahead of expectations, and they've been
Is that good, Dad? Can you see the baby shark?
You were talking about sort of the millennial women.
We gotta push it this way a little bit more.
Good, Dad. Can you see the baby shark? On the Abercrombie side, on the Hollister side, which really caters to Gen Z, because that has been fire. And so that's what's helping to kind of overcome the weakness that they're seeing at Abercrombie. But also, it's looking like Abercrombie could turn positive in the fourth quarter with the number.
Yeah, we'll let people look at my baby shark. That's the baby shark complaint department.
Year and year before that. Our thanks to Mary Ross Gilbert, Bloomberg Intelligence senior equity analyst who covers retail.
We move next to some research from Bloomberg Intelligence in the tech space. It's titled Cisco and a Goldilocks Growth Path.
According to Cisco may see 2026 sales above the top end of its 5 to 7% target, and this comes as the company balances strong AI growth with networking gains.
For more on this, we're Woo Jin Ho, Bloomberg Intelligence senior technology analyst.
We began by asking Wooj to break down why Cisco's shares have had a good run this year.
So there's a couple of things driving it. They're actually a massive $43 billion product upgrade cycle.
Yeah, that's why I bought it. That's why when I seen it, baby, I bought it.
Yeah, it's actually been a lot better than I thought. AI is going to be about $3 billion in sales, tripling, or $3 billion in sales in fiscal 2026, tripling that of 2025. So there is Goldilocks of good AI story as well as an upgrade cycle tailwind.
I was asking Michael Casper earlier about a lot of the tech companies issuing debt to pay for their AI build-out. What does Cisco's debt profile look like, and will it also need to sell bonds to fund everything it's doing?
Yeah, hey, Scarlett. So that's one of the great stories about Cisco. I mean, they have roughly about $20 billion in debt and roughly $30 billion. So, look, they're net cash positive. They don't need to take on debt. If anything, they've been very active buyers of their stock, very good stewards of the cash, strong cash flow profile, and if anything, they're using their cash as leverage to build up the inventory for the AI opportunity that's ahead of them.
So talk to us about just kind of the growth drivers for this company, Wooj. What 2026, what kind of underpins their top line growth?
They guided to roughly the top end of their 4 to 6% growth. I think they're going to do roughly about 7 to 8% growth for this year. So if we think about the AI story itself, tripling from $1 billion to $3 billion, that's going to be the incremental growth that gets you above the top end of their revenue growth guidance. The way I have networking flashed out right now, the networking business, ex-AI is growing roughly around 4%, and that's probably towards the low end. And quite frankly, if the upgrades come in stronger than a lot better than we think, there's a little bit of upside. Now, there is a little bit of drag. The security business hasn't panned out as strongly as they hoped, primarily because it is going through this business model transition. But, it would have been a story at another time. But the two stories, AI as well as the core networking upgrade cycle, I mean, that's doing very, very well in 26. And if anything, I would argue it would probably be better in 2027.
Is Cisco part of this whole circular deal-making, circular funding concern that has investors worried that if one company in this link stops spending or maybe slows down spending, everyone else will get affected?
To some degree, yes, Scarlett. And that's why I think if you look at some of the AI stories there, it's one of the safe bets, right? They are exposed to some of the, I would say, the hyperscale names, but a very small exposure to it, as well as some of the neo clouds. They do sell some routing products and some of the sovereigns. Now, if that business disappears, the cash flow story is still well intact, right? If I calculate the amount of AI revenue relative to total revenue base, we're only talking about 6 to 7% of total sales, right? So if the AI story collapses, I mean, AI evaporates, they're still in very good standing.
Not to mention the fact that they pay out a dividend too. I mean, it's not a huge one, but a tech company with a 2% dividend yield is something.
They've been steady when the stock was lower.
Yeah.
When the stock was lower, it was Q3. So yeah,
there you go.
I mean, what's not to like? Stock buying back and a dividend and an AI story. So what's out?
Our thanks to Woo Jin Ho, Bloomberg Intelligence senior technology analyst. We move next to the news in the media space. U.S. President Donald Trump recently said in a social media post that no television networks should be able to expand.
Trump cited the potential growth of what he considers left-wing news outlets. Trump's post was in response to a Newsmax story that said the FCC head, Brendan Carr, is moving to give television networks massive reach and push through a merger of Nexstar Media Group and Tegna.
For more on this, we were joined by Matthew Schuttenhelm, Bloomberg media litigation analyst.
We began by asking Matthew if he was surprised about President Trump's recent comments.
it's a moderate surprise. So it's not a complete surprise because Newsmax has participated before the FCC and has been one of the few voices that said, don't do this. Don't deregulate this space. And what you really see here is President Trump latching on to an article written on Newsmax's platform opposing the easing of this national ownership cap. What's in play here is that there's current FCC regulation says no company can reach more than 39% of U.S. households. And companies like Nexstar and Sinclair want to go way beyond 39%. In fact, Nexstar has a pending deal before the FCC. They just filed their application last week to acquire Tegna that would take them to 70-80% of the country. And it depends on the FCC deregulating in this space. So Trump latching on to Newsmax's opposition because he's concerned about the TV networks growing larger is a concern. It's a real risk. I'm not convinced yet that it's going to lead to real FCC policy. I think this FCC wants to deregulate in this space, and I think there's going to be a pushback against Trump's view on this.
Okay, so the FCC is headed by Brendan Carr, who's been very active in making sure that he's out there doing the president's bidding. Are you saying that Brendan Carr is going to defy President Trump?
Yeah, so that's the big question here. The FCC used to operate.
All right, Jibu, you ready for the next broadcast?
Even if the president had a view on something, the FCC could chart its own course. That's not going to work anymore. The way this FCC is operating, if the president takes a firm view